Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make an apple frangipane tart. This is a delicious combination of buttery crisp pastry and sweet almond cream and a layer of lightly sweetened apples. So we're going to start by making the pastry. On the site there is a pie crust recipe along with the video that shows you both how to make the pastry and how to roll it out. Now you will need to roll it into a 12-inch, that's about 30 centimeter round, and like I've done here. And don't worry if it's not perfect, because what we're doing with this tart, we're not going to put it into a tart pan. We're going to make a free-form tart. So what you need is a baking sheet, and I've lined it with parchment paper, but if you don't have parchment paper, you could just either lightly butter it or spray it with a non-stick cooking spray. So then we have to transfer our pastry onto our tart pan, onto our baking sheet. So I like to just use a rolling pin and then just lightly roll it and just brush off any excess flour around the rolling pin, and then transfer it, unroll it onto your baking sheet. And then just cover that with a piece of plastic wrap, and then I'm going to place this in the refrigerator to chill, and then we'll start the frangipane. So now we're going to make the frangipane filling. This is really a fancy name for an almond cream filling. So I'm going to use a food processor. And I'm going to start with 1/2 cup, which is 50 grams of chopped almonds. Now I'm using the almonds with the skins on. You could use blanched almonds if you want. And you could also toast the almonds first if you wanted to. And you can just do that in a 350 oven Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, for about 8-10 minutes, just until the almonds become lightly brown. You can start to smell them. And then to that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup, which is 50 grams of granulated white sugar, along with just 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour. And the reason I'm adding the flour and the sugar to the almonds is because we need the almonds we're going to process until finely ground. And if you don't have anything like the sugar or the flour in there, there's a danger of over-processing it, becoming like a paste. So the sugar and the flour will prevent that from happening. And you could also buy ground almonds in the grocery store, already done for you. But they're kind of expensive, so I just prefer to do it this way. So I'm just going to process until everything's finely ground. Okay, simple enough. And then to that, I'm going to add 1 large egg and have that at room temperature, along with just 1/2 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, 3 tablespoons, which is 40 grams of butter, and have it soft. And I like to cut it into small pieces to it blends in easier. And I'm using the unsalted butter, but you could use salted. And then I'm just adding a pinch of salt, about 1/8 teaspoon. Now, if you're going to use salted butter in here, then I would just leave off the salt. And now I'm just going to process this until it becomes a nice, like a smooth paste. And that's it. It's really quite easy to make, and it tastes wonderful. And it's going to add a really nice flavor to our tart, as well as preventing the apples when we put them on. The layer of frangipane prevents the apples from soaking in and softening the crust, so that's another reason to add a layer of this, besides the wonderful flavor. So there we have it. Okay, so I'm just going to clean up, and then we will cut the apples up and assemble the tart. So now we have our pastry all ready, we have our frangipane ready, so now we need to slice our apples. So first, preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius, and we need 6 cups, which is 1.5 liters of firm textured apples sliced into 1/2 inch, which is 1.5 centimeter slices. Now, you can use any firm textured apple that will keep its shape when it's baked. Year-round favorites are like Granny Smith, Golden Delicious, Braeburn. But if it's fall, try to use locally grown apples. What I'm doing here, I have some from the Georgia mountains. I'm using a Granny Smith as well as a Stayman Winesap, both very tart, firm textured apples. And you need to peel and core and slice them. So I'll show you how I slice my apples. There's different ways to do it, and I'll just give you how I do it. I slice it in half, and then I take and I just slice. You have your core, slice down on that side of the core, and on that side, and then across the bottom, like so. And then I just take a smaller knife and peel. Don't worry if you have a little peel left on it. Adds a little texture, flavor. And you can mix. Like I said, I'm using a Granny Smith and a Stayman Winesap. You can mix 2, 3 varieties. It really adds a lot of flavor to your tart. And then just take your knife and 1/2 inch slices like so. Pretty easy. Now, if you were letting these apples sit very long, I would squeeze a little lemon juice and toss it in there, and that prevents the apples from going brown if you ever have that happen. So now, we'll assemble. You take the frangipane. You can use all of it, or I usually like about 1/2 cup, 120 milliliters. So, let's take your... And you need to leave about a 2-inch border around the outside. It's about 5 centimeters, because we're going to fold the pastry up and over the filling. So, and then you can either use the back of a spoon, or I'm using this offset spatula. Spread the cream, like I said. Try to leave about a 2-inch border. This almond cream adds such a nice flavor to this tart. It's really worth the extra step. But if you didn't want to have an almond cream, you could just stack the apples right on the pastry without this. If you're in a rush and you don't have the time to whip that up. Although you could make this ahead of time, several days, and just store the cream in the fridge. So there. Now, next are apples. Now, there's different ways you could do it. I could just take the apples and kind of randomly put them into the center there, or you could make concentric circles, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to make rows. So I'm going to start just like this and sit the apples straight up. There's really no right or wrong way for doing this. If you're in a rush, you could just pile them all up randomly. Okay, so now take pastry, and if it tends to crack or rip, just put it back to place. Like so. Kind of press it down into the apples. And then I'm just going to take some cream and brush the edges of the pastry. Helps with browning. You could use melted butter as well if you'd like to do that. Just a light coating. Okay, and then we're just going to, now you can use 2-3 tablespoons. Taste your apples. If they're quite sour, you might want 3. If they're not too sour, 1 or 2 tablespoons. And sprinkle a little on your crust as well. Kind of makes it kind of crispy and sweet. That sugar will melt into the slices of apple as it bakes. Okay. And then if you want, you could just even sprinkle some sliced almonds over the top. Kind of tells people that gives a hint of the almond filling underneath. There we go. So now, into the oven, somewhere between 50-60 minutes, you want the crust to brown, and then if you take a sharp knife and put it into the apples, you don't want them mushy, you want them firm, but not mushy. So 50 to 60 minutes. So our apple tart is now done. As you can see, the crust has turned a lovely golden brown color. And if I take a sharp knife and insert it into one of the apple slices, it'll be just nice and tender. So you could dust the top of this with some powdered sugar if you like, and you can serve it either at warm or at room temperature with or without a scoop of vanilla ice cream. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Thank you.